All right, so when we start talking about poor ball strikers, people that struggle with making good contact, they have lack of distance and they have lack of control. That's kind of the trifecta. If you can't do any of those things, you're not going to be a really good ball striker. But the thing that I see is we have a common theme that really can play into how you control all of those things. And it really comes from this trail wrist in the golf swing. I see golfers struggle with this so much, and it's one of the first things that we have to address because it can lead to a lot of problems in the golf swing. All right, so let's really start diving deep into what goes on with the trail wrist and impact. So what do poor ball strikers struggle with from a launch monitor perspective? They're gonna struggle with low point. That number is gonna jump around all over the place. They're gonna struggle with dynamic loft. This ball is gonna wanna launch really high. It's probably gonna wanna spin a lot, or sometimes it doesn't because they don't have a proper angle of attack. They do struggle with angle of attack issues too. They don't have a good control of how that's going to work. And then the last one's going to be they struggle with face control. Where is that face related to their path, related to the target, and are they going to get the shot shape that they are looking for? Now, all of this relates to, when we put it all together, at the end of the day, they're going to have poor distance control. The golf ball's just not going to go the distance they think it should, but more importantly, it's not going to go the distance that it should consistently. So they can't plan on an iron shot, or they can't plan on a tee shot. Hey, I'm going to cover this, or I'm going to hit it here. All of those things kind of go out the window. Now, what do we see physically from a great ball striker? What are kind of some of those elements that we see when we see them hit a golf ball? I think we've all seen this a little bit on video, where we'll see that one, they come in and they have that club leaning a little bit forward. So they're de-lofting the golf club a little bit. Now, the second thing that we're going to see is they have really good control of low point, where they're able to move forward and get the club and the shaft leaning forward so that they hit the ball first and then they hit the ground. Or with the driver, they have the ability to control it so they can actually have the low point behind and then swing up, and they don't run the risk of like drop kicking it or having a major catastrophe going into the driver. Now, the other thing that I see when we talk about really, really good ball strikers is they have control of the club face. So when they're coming down, this club face is not all over the place, and they're not trying to square it up at the last second, which is a big, big issue. And honestly, it causes most of the issues that we see in the golf swing, that late trying to square it up. Now, all of this, in my opinion, can be traced back to how are we moving the trail wrist. I see this error so often in the golf swing. So you can see I have this device on here. This is from Y Golf. I've linked it down below. Highly recommend you check it out. This has become an absolute staple in my game, but also teaching, using it a ton because I see students doing it. Before I even got the device, I saw students doing this, but this device has had such great feedback from my students on, man, I can really feel it and hear it, and that feedback is phenomenal for fixing our issue. So what do we see with the trail wrist? What is supposed to happen? Well, if we're going to achieve our goals here, if I wanted to move forward, I also want to have some shaft lean, but I also want to keep the face closed, what ends up having to happen is we have to get our trail wrist to go into what's called extension. So extension is just when you bend it backwards. Most people get into flexion, which is when you bend it forward, okay, like this. Now you'll notice this device clicks when I go into extension. So it gives us great feedback of, are we A, getting the wrist to set or get into extension, and are we able to hold that and let it go at the right time? You're going to release that extension eventually, but the key is we're releasing it at the wrong time. So when I see and work with players, here's the couple major issues that I see. First, because they've been told, a lot of times we've been told, hey, we're dragging the club low and wide, we're going to take it out nice and wide, we're going to drag it back low and slow, all of that stuff. What they end up doing is they do something like this. They drag, 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 and they actually never actually set the golf club in the backswing. So when they do that, the club actually usually gets inside and too low. So that gets them on the track of, we're going to be low and inside, go up, tend to be over the top. but it also gets very difficult to get the club face to stay square, because you have to do it now by tilting your body excessively, which causes a whole bunch of other issues in the swing. But you start on a bad track of, we're taking it back too low, we're not actually getting any set. So for us to achieve our goal of, hey, I need to have some wrist extension in this trail wrist at impact, well, I haven't done it yet, so somewhere later I'm gonna have to do it. Now we have to manage that move and make it work at parts where it gets a lot tougher to do. So what do I like to see people do? I like to see people, when they bring it back, I like to see the club get set. It doesn't have to be a lot, but what I like to see is by the time the club gets to P2 here, so this club is right here, what I want to see is that the club is somewhere, you know, kind of even with my hands, but also the club is parallel to the ground and it's just outside of my trail leg. So I need some upward motion. And again, I should hear this device click by the time I get there. The second issue people have is when they transition or they go up in the rest of the swing, they don't know how to keep the club face square. So if they get the face open, okay, they get the face open, they have to release this club coming down to try and square it up. Well, this device can also help us do that, because as I go up, if I set this club, what I can do is work up into my backswing by just turning back. And then as I transition, I think if you really feel the extension in your wrist, and I can actually turn this up, so I have to work harder. But if I really get up here and I feel the extension in my wrist coming down, I don't let this device start to unhinge. What happens is, if you think about your lead wrist, if I extend my lead wrist, it's going to flex my lead wrist. Sorry, if I extend my trail wrist, it's going to flex my lead wrist. By doing that, that starts to shut the face. Notice how the club face is pointing down at the golf ball. So I've got the face squared up and my wrists are in a good spot. So now if I just kept going, we're in a really good spot there where I'm going to lead into a really good impact position. The last part of this is, how do we deliver the club to the ball? So again, partially because of what's going on, and I'd say majority of what's going on earlier in the swing, people say, all right, hey, I've got to throw and square up the club face. But if I'm able to come up here and now I'm able to transition without having this click, I'm not going to do something like this to square it up, or what you'll see is people get up here and it's not even clicking, or it starts to unclick a lot. You get kind of wild up here at the top, and then they have to make the club face get square as they're coming down. That's another thing you'll see happen. But if I'm able to get the club to set, go up and come down without clicking, now what I realize is I just need to transport. I've got my hands and my wrists in a really good spot. So from right here, I just need to transport that club to the golf ball. And the way I do that is through a combination of body tilts and rotations to make sure I'm going to hit the ball first, and that I'm going to make sure I strike and keep some loft off of that golf club. So I love this device because you can kind of set it at different levels of difficulty, but it really can help you and start getting you to understand what's going on. So how would I like people to drill this? Well, the first way I'd like to do this is we're working on the trail wrist. I would like for people to just set up, and we're going to just make a little backswing, hear the device click. And then from here, I'm going to just turn and open my body and hit this ball. Okay, just something like that. I'll do it one more time. There we go. And you don't need to hit beautiful, perfect shots. What typically happens for people is they will typically hit it thin because they're not used to getting the club down. One of the issues you have when you start to throw your wrist is that makes the club get long. So people have to then counteract that by standing up. So that's where you see a lot of early extension issues, stuff like that. So they have to counteract that. But when they're doing this properly, they're gonna have to retrain their body to tilt and side bend to the ball and also rotate so that they can actually make contact. So I do see a lot of people hit it thin. The other thing I see people do is I see a lot of shanks. I see a lot of issues with toes and heels because, again, you just have to reorganize where you're at with your body. Your body is gonna have to adjust because you are moving your hands and wrists differently. So once we do that, you can see hit just a 30-yard carry. Obviously a low launch, took a lot of loft. My 7-iron here, about 35 degrees of loft on it. So I've took 15 degrees off of it. That's not something I would normally see on a normal shot, but you can see we're heading in the right direction. So then from there, we're gonna put the 2 hands on it. I'm gonna bring it back. And from here, I wanna try and get the club to set, turn with both hands, and hit a golf shot. Okay? And try to delay when that release is happening. What's gonna happen is we should see low point be pretty good. You can see 7.7 inches in front. That is quite a lot. And then your face to path, I like to draw it. So we should see something to the left. I don't really care too much yet about what it is. And then again, we should see that dynamic loft getting down, launch getting lower. So we'll do that one more time. Set it. Kind of like the old infomercial, the set it and forget it. And there we go. Pretty good one there. And then what I'm gonna do is add in the rest of the swing. So I'm gonna build my swing from there. I should be making okay contact, seeing some shots. And then from there, what I'm gonna do is bring it back, set it, bring it up, really feel that club stay and go. Now, when I start to go into a full swing, I will definitely let this thing release. It just will. But what I should see is, or what I should feel like is, it's happening at the ball or almost later than the ball. It's gonna be hard to do, but that is what you're gonna go for as you're doing this. And that's where people have really liked the device for that feedback. So we're gonna set it up, maintain, try to delay it as much as we can. Pretty good. 5.2 in front, 17.6 launch, dynamic loft 26.7, brought it down to about 10 degrees, that's 9 or 8 degrees, which for me is pretty good at my speed. That's something I would see. And then as I do this, if I'm having success, I'm just going to keep ramping it up in speed and seeing if I'm able to keep a lot of these parameters. So again, low point there, 3.5. Face to target, I left that face a little bit open there. So for me, when I transition, I need to feel that face closing. Can't let it lay back like this and then go. I'll talk more about that in a sec. So let's go ahead and get one more where the face is a little bit more closed. Felt a lot better. There we go. Getting my little baby draw. That's a pretty good shot for me. Again, dynamic loft 27. When I see about 7 or 8 off of my static loft, that's usually good. Face to path, I like to draw it, so I should see something to the left. And that launch and low point are in a good spot. So that's what we're looking for as we're working through, and that's what the good ball striker is going to look at. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some troubleshooting. Okay, just because you can do this, there are issues you can run into, a couple common issues that I see when they're working on their trail wrist. So one of them being when people do this, because they're taught to shallow the club and they have this kind of image of what shallowing is, really laying the club back behind them. What happens when you do that is you are tending to want to open the face up, okay? So people will hold this wrist back and they'll say, all right, hey, I'm getting this to click. And they drop it down, but the face is still open. So they do everything correct, and they hit a solid shot, but the ball takes off right. The one I just hit before this, that would be a great example. So you have to be very careful when you come down and say, all right, hey, I need to get the face. Not only am I holding my wrist, but I need to start getting the face to work down. Now, a lot of that's going to be through your forearms. That's going to be the main one. How are you moving your arms and rotating your arms? You need to get those out and get those closing the face. That's a big one. Now, the second one is, as a troubleshooting, when we do this, I do see people struggle, like we said, when we're doing the one-handed drill, left and right on the face, and I also see a lot of thin shots. And that's because now that they have their wrist under control, the way they used to swing is they would throw this wrist out and they would counteract things by standing up, because when I extend my wrist, that gets the club into the ground early. So now what do you have to do? You have to start early extending to get away from the ground. That other thing that happens is, depending on how they do it, they sometimes throw it out this way. So they have to stand up and go backwards because they need to get away from the ball. Otherwise, they have no chance to make good contact. So what I do see a lot of times is when people are doing this, they will struggle with, hey, I might shank it. The way you do that is you just have to go back to the one-handed drills, work on it. You should be able to get the center of the face onto the golf ball, and that'll help you organize your body motions so that you are reteaching yourself how they move. If your hands and wrists are correct, then you need to just organize your body and how it turns, pivots. That's going to make it so you can have really, really good contact. So just wanted to give you a couple troubleshooting there, but again, we're taking a deep dive into this wrist. This trail wrist is a massive, massive key to good ball striking, and we want to make sure that that is working for us. All right, so if you have any questions about it, please leave that comment down below. And as always, click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. And thanks everybody for watching. We're going to see you in the next one. Peace.